local for you. NBC4 at 7 starts now.
We now know when two men accused of taking part in a crime rampage July 6th will appear before a jury. Today, two suspects charged in a crime spree waived their court appearances, having their lawyers speak on their behalf. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for NBC4 at 7. I'm Jennifer Bullock. Those two suspects, 20-year-old Aiden Jama and 23-year-old Faisal Darad, did not appear in court, but their attorneys did, and more than a dozen officers joining in for that hearing as well. Today, attorneys learned the pair would face a federal jury in October. The two are accused of stealing a car from a Porsche dealership in Whitehall before robbing a bank in Hilliard. The crime spree ended in a shootout with law enforcement on I-70, where an unnamed officer was severely injured. The highway closed for hours, and one of the three suspects was killed in that shootout. CPD Chief Elaine Bryant explains how emotional the process has been for the injured officer's family and his brothers and sisters in blue.
Ready to bring this case to justice. The mother, the family is going through a lot. I'm sure very emotional and very difficult for them to be here during this time, but we wanted to make sure that we showed our support and let them know that we stand with them.
The federal hearing comes less than a week after the injured officer was released from Grant Medical Center, where he spent 20 days. That officer is expected to continue his recovery at a rehabilitation facility. Happening tomorrow, a double murder suspect is expected to be in court after a late-night shooting at a Northeast Columbus apartment complex Monday. Columbus police got the call just before midnight of a shooting at the Garden Apartments complex on Plum Creek Drive. CPD says when officers arrived, they found two adults who Columbus police still have not identified had been shot. The suspect, 29-year-old Marquis Shepard, is now facing 2 counts of murder. Police say Shepard and the victims got into an argument that may have led to that shooting.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies.
Breaking now, for the first time in history, a grand jury has indicted a former U.S. president for trying to overturn an election he lost. Former President Donald Trump faces 4 charges, accused of conspiracy to defraud the United States, deprivation of rights, and witness tampering. The indictment is the 3rd against former President Trump, centering on his actions leading up to the deadly January 6th U.S. Capitol attack. His arraignment is set for Thursday. Special counsel Jack Smith, who led the investigation on Trump's connection to the 2020 election, just spoke.
In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens. In the meantime, I must emphasize that the indictment is only an allegation and that the defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Now, this story is still developing. To stay up to date on the latest news, download our NBC4 mobile news app so you can get breaking news alerts sent straight to your phone wherever you may be. Just search NBC4 in your app store or scan the QR code on your screen. Young people involved in violent crime is a growing problem for the city of Columbus. Numbers from Columbus Police show there are 33 homicide suspects this year who are 21 or younger. Now, a new program by the nonprofit Think, Make, Live Youth hopes to reduce those numbers. It's called Guns Down. Down stands for Doing Outstanding with Nonviolence. Founder and Executive Director Terry Green says it will give young people space to talk about trauma and work on their futures.
If you have a safe space where young people can heal, grow, and get connected to new resources, then you are doing gun violence prevention.
Green's organization is working with Columbus Public Health on the 10-week program. That's for people 13 to 24 years old and starts next week. Sign-up information can be found on our website, NBC4i.com. Juveniles repeatedly stealing cars, another major problem for Central Ohio over the last 2 years, sometimes resulting in violent crashes. Just last week, 4 minors were sent to the hospital after a stolen Kia crashed into another stolen vehicle and flipped in South Columbus. And in May, a 12-year-old crashed a stolen Kia into a Columbus fire truck. Data shows since January 2021 through April of this year, more than 950 different youth have stolen cars. 330 of them have done it more than once. Now, a Franklin County juvenile court judge and his partners want to steer repeat offenders onto the right path. Judge George Leach says the juvenile auto theft program will start with 20 people they call passengers. The goal, changing their outlook on this trend.
I'm not always looking for remorse right away in a program like this. I'm looking for a connection. I'm looking for a juvenile to just take a step back and say, whoa, maybe I shouldn't do that. That's what I want. That's the juvenile that we won't need remorse because he or she won't get involved.
After they get the official approval from the courts, Leach says they are hoping to start in November. In just 7 days, Ohio voters will decide whether it should be more difficult to amend the state constitution. Issue 1 is the only question on the special election ballot. The proposed amendment would make it more difficult for citizen-led initiatives to pass and require 60% of votes to change Ohio's constitution instead of the current simple majority. If Issue 1 passes, it would impact issues like the abortion amendment Ohioans will vote on in November. Experts say in part, putting Issue 1 on an August ballot is an attempt to preempt the abortion vote that polls just under 60% across the state. The Vote Yes campaign says at its core, it's about protecting the state's constitution from outside special interests, while those on the Vote No side argue Issue 1 won't do anything to help Ohioans.
I'm hearing from people really embracing the no vote because at the end of the day, they understand that it really is important for the people to have their voice over politicians, and that the only way to have their voice heard is through the vote.
One of the things that many folks have said to me the 15 years in the legislature, including some of a lot of the business groups, but others, is that they would like to have stability in terms of what the law is in the state of Ohio, that it changes, especially with constitutional changes happening on a regular basis.
NBC4 is your local election headquarters. For more information about Issue 1 or to find your polling locations and early voting hours, scan the QR code on your screen or go to nbc4i.com/election. It is the first Tuesday of August, which means it's National Night Out across the country and here in Central Ohio. It's a way for police and city leaders to build relationships with the neighborhoods they serve. Some communities have been holding National Night Out events for decades, but for others, this was their first time this year. NBC4 spent the evening in Bexley, and here's what the police chief had to say about tonight's importance.
It's so important because National Night Out in 40 years, it focuses on the need to impact community and show law enforcement a different light.
Super cool. I think it's just amazing how we can all get together and just hang out and have some fun.
National Night Out has been happening for the last 40 years. In Columbus alone, more than 150 gatherings happen in neighborhoods tonight. Today, Governor Mike DeWine spoke on Ohio's water quality and how it's improved over the last few decades. The governor says 1,300 miles of rivers were tested in the 80s and only 18% met clean water standards. The Scioto Mile had some of the worst water quality in the state at the time. But over the last 2 years, the Ohio EPA studied those same 1,300 miles and found 86% is now safe for recreation.
I think one of the things we're seeing across this state is not only an increase in the water quality, I think there's also a realization of the importance of our water.
Governor DeWine says the improvement is partly because of improved water waste infrastructure, treatment, and conservation measures. City officials say there's a looming housing crisis. Still ahead, how Columbus City Council is fighting back with an initiative planning to increase affordable housing. And coming up next, an iconic Christmas fixture in Columbus for decades. Now the life-size display is moving homes. Find out the new location when we return.